Hi everybody, I've been reading the You Need a Budget book. Now, to explain YNAB or You Need a Budget, there's, I guess, two aspects to it. So You Need a Budget is a software program that helps you track your spending, and more importantly, it helps you budget your money, allocate your money for future expenses. It's probably the software program in terms of financial management that probably most closely aligns with the way that I like to do it. Unfortunately, You Need a Budget in Australia doesn't really work so well. There's no direct syncing with Australian banks, so you've got to manually enter everything, and for me that's something that I'm just not interested in doing. Nevertheless, there is a You Need a Budget book which I've been reading recently, and there's the 4 rules of You Need a Budget. And look, you don't need the software program to adhere to the 4 rules or to manage your budget, and that's what I like about it. They're very open about that and saying you can use the software or not. So in today's video, I just want to explain the 4 rules of You Need a Budget. So rule number 1 is pretty simple. Give every dollar a job. Now this is important because if you don't allocate your money somewhere, it's just going to go and get wasted. I'm a firm believer in having goals, having purposes for your money. It comes back to one of the first things I learned about investing and saving was this concept of pay yourself first. So out of every dollar that you earn, a percentage of that dollar, a portion of that dollar is yours to keep. And so You Need a Budget takes this in the sense of give every dollar a job. There's a couple of points around this. Point 1 is take care of your immediate obligations. So what they're saying is when you get a paycheck, comes in, every dollar gets from that paycheck gets a job. Step 1, what is immediate? So I've got to put food on the table, for instance. I've got a mortgage payment due tomorrow. They're immediate obligations. So you start apportioning your money towards those immediate obligations. Then it talks about moving to your true expenses. Now, this is a concept that I like, and it's something I've always believed in. True expenses are those expenses that happen over a course of a year or a couple of years even. So the problem with most budgeting programs is that all they're doing is looking at the short term. So in our family, for instance, we have 2 cars and registration, we pay annually for that. Now, if we didn't account for that and save money every fortnight towards that car registration, when the bill came in, that would be virtually a week's worth of income for us. And we wouldn't eat for the week because the bill's due. So You Need a Budget takes great pains to say, understand your true expenses. Look at all the expenses that come in, including unexpected expenses, and allocate money towards those expenses. Next up, it talks about highest priorities. Now, in my experience working with people as a financial planner, when I was in that role, people have goals, and sometimes you can't do all of those things. And sometimes with your money, you just can't make it stretch perhaps as far as you would like to make it stretch. So it means prioritizing things and making sure that money is allocated to those things that are priorities. Now, this is actually a really positive thing, because what it does mean is that if you decide that a holiday in a year's time is a high priority, then you allocate money towards it. But the reality of doing that is that that's money you haven't got to allocate somewhere else. So getting you in touch with your highest priorities, I think, gives you a sense of financial accomplishment, because you do start saving for the things that are important for you and you're less reactive with your money. Also, one of the things I talk about in the book in this first section of giving every dollar a job is just for fun. So you've got to have the ability with your money to do fun things, or else the budget becomes something that you become incredibly resentful of. So within your budget, always make sure there's some money, even if it's just $5, towards something that's fun. That could be something to eat. It could be something you do as a couple, as a family, but make sure there's money allocated towards just enjoying life along the way. Now, one of the things I talk about in the book is how these 4 steps are kind of all tied into each other. And step number 2 is to embrace your true expenses. And this is what I was just talking about earlier in this video. So there's predictable expenses, which are the things that are just regular. So for us, it's a mortgage payment. For our house, it's car insurance, health insurance, are things that are just regular, predictable expenses. Every month, every fortnight, we pay these things. But then there's unpredictable but inevitable expenses. And this is probably the other extreme, where it's stuff that you don't know when it's going to happen, but it will happen. Now, I like to think there's probably a third category that sits in the middle there. So if you go from predictable expenses to unpredictable expenses, there's ones that are semi-predictable. In our example, for instance, we know that probably once a year, or once every couple of years, we're going to get hit with a relatively high car expense for servicing, simply because of the age of our cars and the fact we do get them regularly serviced, that things will need doing. Something may break down on the car that's unexpected. It may need new tyres. Those things, you don't know when they're going to happen, but you know that they are going to happen. So you need a budget, gets you to think through those possibilities and to allocate money towards things that you're not sure really what it will be used for yet, but you know that it's pretty likely that this sort of thing will happen. Now, one of the things that You Need a Budget talks about is the concept of sinking funds. So a sinking fund essentially is money that you save up into a bank account, and it's for a future expense, generally a future lump sum expense. So you may have a sinking fund, for instance, for new white goods around your house, new washing machine, new dryer, and so on. So you don't know when you're going to need that, but you put maybe $50 a month away or something like that. And then over a few years, you build up a substantial sum of money. So when one of those things stops working, you can draw money out of the sinking fund, and it doesn't have to come from your everyday expenses. It's, again, an unpredictable but an inevitable expense. Step number 3, roll with the punches. And this is really, really important. So changing your budget is not failing. Now, I see online people asking the question and getting discouraged and saying, I've been doing this budget thing, whether it's with You Need a Budget or whatever, but this week we've had some massive expenses come in, or this week I've had this work stuff come up and I've been eating out and I've just blown the budget and I've failed. So what? It doesn't matter. So the point is that because you've got a budget, you're more aware of these things and more aware of perhaps where you're falling over. But that's fine. It's like exercising. The more you do it, the stronger and better you're going to get at it. So changing your budget is not failing. There's a couple of aspects to this. One is if week by week something comes up that is a little unexpected, it's not failing. It's just a fact you've got to reallocate money. So you say, well, this money I put aside for holidays, for instance, I've got to reallocate it to this week's expense. But also, you may have a desire to say, I want to get our food bill below $100 a week. And you may be consistently hitting $130 and getting discouraged about it. You know what? Maybe that's as low as you can get it. And maybe upping your food budget to $130 is the answer, because that's what's realistic for you. And I like this about You Need a Budget. The concept of this, that the budget is a moving thing. It's not something that's fixed. It adapts and changes to your circumstance. The last step is age your money. And this is really, really interesting. So what you do is you set a goal to save what you would spend in a typical month. So say your monthly expenses are $5,000, you have a goal to save that $5,000 up in your bank account. And then the idea is that the next month when you start spending money, you're using money from 30 days ago, if that makes sense. So your money is aged at 30 days. Say you build up a buffer of 2 months worth of your living costs, so all your living costs, then it may well be that the money you're spending in, say, March, you saved up at the end of December. So you're 2 months in advance. Your 60 days is the age of your money. Now, what about the opposite, which is most people? So you spend on your credit card, the bill comes in on the 30th, you've got to pay it on the 14th, and you get a pay through on the 12th, and you use some of that pay to pay that credit card bill. So essentially you're taking future money to pay for a previous expense. So your age of money there will be negative. So I really, really like this concept, because you can set a goal to age your money and to have a big buffer. So if something ever happened with your job or your income, you've got this buffer of money to get you through. They talk about embracing the sprint and really making an effort to do this. And another concept they talk about is budgeting any windfalls to you next month. So if you say this time of year in Australia, it's tax return season. So that's a windfall. So rather than getting it and then spending it this month, it's a sort of thing that you can put away for future months as well, and therefore help to age your money. So there you have it. That's the 4 rules of you need a budget. Rule number 1 is give every dollar a job. Rule number 2 is embrace your true expenses. Rule number 3, roll the punches. Things will go wrong. And rule number 4 is age your money. Hope you enjoyed the video. As I said, the YNAB program is well worth checking out, particularly if you're in America or one of those countries where the bank feeds work well. As I said, I'm personally not a fan of any budgeting program that needs me to manually enter stuff because I am terrible at doing that. I need something with automatic bank feeds. Hope you enjoyed this. If you have questions about the 4 rules of you need a budget, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And again, thank you so much for watching.